You understand why we are here, do you not?
We have a policy.
We don't want you here.
That's for saying.
The laughter cut through the glass walls of the showroom like a knife. Amara Lewis froze mid-step, the soft hum of designer heels around her echoing like applause for her humiliation. She stood in a muted gray sheath dress, tailored, clean, and powerful. Yet in this gleaming temple of European luxury, it was deemed wrong. "Sweetheart," said the sales associate, voice drenched in false kindness, "our pieces are exclusive. Perhaps the outlet mall across town might suit your taste." The room chuckled, soft, synchronized, venomous. Cameras clicked. Phones lifted. Someone whispered, "She must have wandered in by mistake." Amara's throat tightened. The logo behind the associate shimmered. Maison Verlaine, the brand she'd admired for years, now turning her admiration into ash. She forced herself to meet the woman's gaze. "I can afford anything in this room," she said quietly. The woman smiled, thin and practiced. "Not everything is about money." That line, sharp, coded, final, landed like a slap. Security was already drifting closer, all polite smiles and folded hands. As they escorted her out into the cold afternoon, Amara's reflection caught in the mirrored doors. Small, furious and utterly alone. She didn't cry. Not there. Not for them, but something behind her calm eyes hardened into glass. 3 months later, every luxury feed in Europe would explode with a single headline: "New investor acquires majority stake in Maison Verlaine." And beneath it, a single quote from Amara Lewis: "I don't wear symbols of exclusion. I own them." The glass doors whispered shut behind Amara Lewis, sealing her into a world of white light, perfume, and judgment. Maison Verlaine's flagship showroom gleamed, marble floors reflecting chandeliers, garments displayed like relics. Every thread whispered exclusivity. Every gaze measured worth. Amara smoothed her gray dress, subtle and professional. It wasn't couture, but it was hers. She'd worn it through board votes, investor meetings, and product launches. Power didn't need sequins. It needed silence, precision, and presence. "Bonjour, madame," a saleswoman said, her accent crisp. "May I assist you?" Amara smiled. "Just looking. I'm interested in your new line." The woman's eyes traveled, skin, hair, dress, then flicked toward her colleague with a barely there smirk. "Of course," she said sweetly. "Our haute couture collection starts at 30,000 euros. A small pause. "I'm aware." Still, the woman lingered. "Perhaps our accessories section might be more approachable?" Amara's pulse slowed and the CEO reflex. Don't react, assess, memorize. Other customers began to notice. One, a blonde influencer, whispered to her phone camera. Another chuckled softly. Amara turned toward a silk gown on display, its label reading "Exclusive, by appointment only." She touched the fabric. "Is this available in black?" The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We don't carry every color for every clientele." That line landed sharp. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. The tone that had followed Amara since childhood. The polite venom that told her she was allowed in spaces only as spectacle. A man in a tailored suit approached, the store manager. "Is there an issue here?" The associate gestured subtly. "Just a browsing customer who I may not what?" Amara's voice was calm, almost detached. The manager cleared his throat. "Madam, this is a private preview event. I was invited." She showed the embossed email on her phone. His eyes flickered, recognition, then discomfort. But the damage was done. Around her, the room's temperature had shifted. Laughter, whispers, the quiet hum of assumed superiority. Amara stepped back, voice low. "You've made a mistake." The associate folded her arms. "I don't think so." The cameras from the influencer's phone turned toward them. Someone murmured, "This'll go viral." It did. Hours later, the clip would circulate online. Entitled Woman Demands Couture. Few would recognize the calm beneath Amara's eyes. The calculation forming there for now. She simply adjusted her dress, lifted her chin, and said the words that would echo across every screen in a week. "Don't worry. I'll remember this." Then she walked out, heels clicking against marble like a countdown. The first notification came before sunrise. Amara's phone buzzed across her nightstand, screen glowing with unfamiliar hashtags. Your showroom incident. Luxury gate. Who she thinks she is. By the time she sat up, the clip had over 3 million views. The video began mid-argument, her voice calm, the associate's tone dripping condescension. But context never trends. The captions twisted her restraint into arrogance. Entitled woman demands special treatment. Amara stared at the screen. Each replay made her heart beat slow, not from shock and from recognition. She'd seen this pattern before. How outrage was curated, how black women's composure became weaponized as defiance. Her assistant, Lila, called. It's everywhere. Verlaine released a statement. Already? Lila read it aloud. Maison Verlaine deeply regrets any misunderstanding and remains committed to diversity and inclusion. Amara exhaled through her nose. The word sorry doesn't appear once, does it? No, ma'am, the PR consultant texted next. We advise no comment until the story cools. Engagement only fuels it. She muted the chat. Of course, she murmured. Silence always protects the brand. By mid-morning, her inbox overflowed. Some messages defended her. Others sneered that she'd played the race card. A luxury blog wrote, she should have known her place. The fashion world is about image, not equality. Amara's phone rang again, her COO, Grant. Rough morning, huh? He said, trying for humor. Depends how you define rough. Well, the board's nervous. Investors don't like controversy. Maybe stay low until this blows over. Grant, she said evenly. They humiliated a CEO. I'm not the liability here. Sure, just optics, you know? She hung up mid-sentence. The conversation didn't deserve closure. By noon, her face was plastered across morning shows. Commentators debated tone, intent, attitude. Each spoke like anthropologists dissecting her dignity. One host smiled brightly at the camera. Do you think she overreacted? The panel laughed. Amara turned off the TV. The silence afterward was heavier than noise, a hollow where outrage should have lived. She opened her laptop. The video played again, this time paused at the moment she said, Don't worry, I'll remember this. Most saw defiance. But beneath her words was calculation. Her father's voice echoed in memory, from years ago, back when she'd fought to get her first business loan. Don't fight them where they expect you to. Own the table they think you can't sit at. She hadn't understood it then. Now she did. A new post appeared on her feed, the influencer's follow-up vlog. Apparently, the woman said, eyes wide with fake innocence, she's some kind of tech exec. But that doesn't mean you can act superior, right? The comments flooded with agreement, cruelty wrapped in civility. Words like aggressive, dramatic, attention-seeking. Amara stared at the scrolling feed until it blurred. Then she closed it. Lila knocked on her office door an hour later. I made coffee. You should eat. Amara didn't look up. Did you know Maison Verlaine's parent company is in financial litigation? Lila blinked. No, but that's not surprising. Neither is their apology. Amara's voice steadied. Weak brands always hide rot under polish. Lila hesitated. Are you thinking lawsuit? Amara shook her head. No, something quieter. Her phone buzzed again, a journalist requesting a quote. She typed a response and deleted it. Then another. Then she simply wrote no comment. The footage speaks for itself. She hit send. That night, Amara sat in her penthouse overlooking the city, laptop open to stock reports. Numbers calmed her. They obeyed logic when people didn't. Maison Verlaine's quarterly revenue was slipping. Their social engagement dipped since the scandal. Retail partners were reconsidering contracts. She highlighted a name, Aurelian Holdings, a European equity firm with ties to Maison Verlaine. The same firm her company had once partnered with on a data project. A thread connected, quietly, perfectly. She began drafting an email. Not as Amara Lewis, the woman mocked in a showroom, but as A.L. Carter, head of a new investment entity she would build from scratch. Outside, rain streaked the glass. Headlines would move on by morning. Outrage would fade. Hashtags would die. But she wasn't done. She whispered to herself the same way she had that day in the store. I'll remember this. And this time the words weren't a promise. They were a plan. The conference room was too bright, too quiet, and too full of men who didn't meet her eyes. Amara sat at the head of the glass table, laptop open, quarterly metrics glowing on screen. Her company, Novalink Technologies, had posted record profits and up 14% from last quarter. Yet every face in the room looked cautious, not celebratory. Grant, her COO, cleared his throat. Before we move forward, I think we should address the incident. Amara didn't look up. The one where I walked into a store and was treated like a criminal? Or the one where the board started doubting my competence because of it? Silence. He forced a chuckle. That's not fair, Amara. It's just perception matters. Clients talk. Investors read headlines. It might help to release a softer statement, something that reaffirms your commitment to professionalism. Her jaw tightened. Professionalism. That word only comes up when someone like me makes white people uncomfortable. Across the table, an older investor shifted uneasily. No one's accusing anyone of bias, he said quickly. But these things can be distracting. You're running a billion-dollar company. We can't afford distractions. Amara closed the laptop with deliberate calm. You mean you can't afford my visibility? You'd rather my name stay profitable but faceless. No one responded. Grant tried again. Look, we're on your side. But if you want to lead effectively, maybe. She stood up. Don't finish that sentence. Her voice was low, steady. The same tone she'd used with venture capitalists who doubted her, with journalists who framed her story as inspirational instead of earned. I built this company, she said, from a living room full of second-hand monitors. From rejected proposals and condescending handshakes. I didn't need your side then, and I don't now. Grant's smile faltered. No one's questioning your ability. They're questioning my belonging. The room stayed still, the kind of stillness that hides fear under etiquette. She gathered her tablet and walked toward the door. Then paused. Schedule next week's meeting with the investors directly. I want a closed session. After she left, whispers rippled behind her. She could almost hear them through the frosted glass. Words like temperamental, defensive, emotional. All the coded vocabulary of control. Back in her office, Lila was waiting with a file in hand. The data you asked for. Maison Verlaine's corporate filings. Amara took it without sitting. And? They're bleeding cash. Luxury retail's down 12% this quarter. Their expansion in Dubai failed. They'll need new capital by year's end. Amara flipped through the pages. Each line of numbers a quiet revelation. Perfect. Are you sure you want to do this? Lila asked softly. It's personal. Amara looked up, eyes cool. Everything that happens to people like us is personal. We just learned to call it business. She walked to the window overlooking Manhattan. Skyline glittering, clouds heavy. From here, the city looked orderly. Predictable. Like injustice could be managed with strategy. But she knew better. Her phone vibrated. A message from an old mentor, Sylvia Chen, saw the video. You handled it with grace. Remember, real power moves in silence. Amara typed back one line. Then it's time to be silent. That evening, she met with her legal advisor, Dr. Vikram Rao, a quiet man with sharper instincts than any lobbyist. He listened as she outlined her plan. The shell company, the silent investment, the acquisition path. He leaned back, thoughtful. You're planning to buy them. Yes. That will require more than capital. You'll need cooperation from hostile parties. They won't sell willingly. Amara smiled faintly. Everyone sells when the numbers look right. Rao studied her. This isn't just business to you. No, she admitted. But it'll look that way. The lights from the skyscrapers flickered across her face, and half shadow, half fire. She poured herself a glass of water, hands steady. They turn my image into a spectacle. I'll turn theirs into an asset. Rao nodded slowly. Then we begin with stealth. We'll build a portfolio, anonymous, untraceable. By the time they realize who's buying, they'll already have sold. Exactly. She glanced at the clock. Midnight. The city's hum softened outside, replaced by the low rhythm of strategy forming. Quiet, deliberate, inevitable. Her reflection in the window met her gaze. The same calm eyes that had faced mockery, boardroom silence and viral scrutiny. Not anger. Precision. In the distance, lightning flashed over the skyline, Amara whispered. More to herself than to anyone. They thought it was a dress. It was armor. And for the first time since the showroom, she smiled. 2 weeks later, Amara's penthouse became a war room, not of shouting or chaos, but of precision. Spreadsheets glowed across 3 monitors. Legal documents stacked in tight rows. A whiteboard lined with names and arrows. Subsidiaries, holding firms, silent partners. Maison Verlaine sat at the center, circled in red. Lila entered quietly, setting down a cup of black coffee. Your flight to Geneva is confirmed. Meeting with the equity brokers is at 9. Amara nodded. Any word from Aurelian Holdings? They're under pressure. Their last 2 investors pulled out after the scandal. They'll need a cash infusion soon. Amara studied the chart. Then they'll take our bait. She had created Arcadia Group, a phantom investment firm registered through neutral channels in Luxembourg. Its listed CEO, a retired European businessman who owed her a favor. Every move would appear detached from her name. Her father had once said, "Never confront the system directly. Systems absorb confrontation. They can't absorb infiltration." So she built her infiltration like a symphony, quiet, layered, mathematical. At the Geneva office, polished marble met polished deceit. The brokers smiled too easily, their eyes flicking to her forged credentials. Arcadia Group, one said approvingly. Private, discreet, growth-focused. Our kind of client, Amara smiled back. Discretion is my favorite currency. The negotiations began. Maison Verlaine is a proud house, the broker said. They've had some image challenges, but the brand equity remains unmatched. Every brand has rot, Amara said evenly. I just prefer to clean mine before it stinks. The man hesitated, then laughed. The kind of laugh that assumes equality when there is none. You have an edge, Miss Carter. That's why I win. For 6 hours, numbers traded hands. Proposals rewritten, agreements drafted. By the time she left, Arcadia Group had secured rights to a controlling share once belonging to Verlaine's former private backers. Step 1. Complete. Back in New York, the city pulsed with rain. Lila reviewed the documents again. It's working, but it's fast. Too fast. It has to be. Because you don't trust yourself to stop? Amara looked at her. Because I know how the world moves when you hesitate. Lila sighed. You're not just buying a company. You're proving something. Amara's eyes hardened. No, I'm correcting the record. She returned to the whiteboard, marking a new phase. Phase 2. Consolidation. Calls with attorneys. Cross-border filings. Silent investors looped in under NDAs. Each conversation precise, transactional, drained of emotion. At midnight, she sat alone by the window again, phone glowing with unread messages from journalists still digging at her name. Her PR team begged for statements. She ignored them all. Instead, she typed a single email to Dr. Rao. Contract secured. Begin transfer sequence, he replied. Understood. Once executed, you'll hold 52%. 52%. Enough to silence every boardroom. Enough to rewrite every policy. She leaned back, staring at the skyline. The city's glow looked colder tonight. Power always did when it was finally within reach. A knock. Lila again, hesitant. There's something you should see. She handed over her tablet. A headline blinked. Maison Verlaine names new diversity consultant after viral incident. The photo, the same associate who had mocked her, now posing under banners of inclusion and awareness. Amara's grip tightened on the tablet. They turned their insult into marketing. Maybe it's a start. No. Her voice sliced the air. It's camouflage. She set the tablet down slowly, exhaled once. Fine. If they want optics, I'll give them optics. That night, she revised the plan again. Not just ownership, exposure. She'd make the world see the machinery of image, how apologies became PR, how prejudice hid behind statements of inclusion. Her fingers typed quickly. Each keystroke deliberate. New shell contracts. Rebranded communications, public launch timing. Then she paused, staring at her reflection in the black screen. For the first time, exhaustion flickered through her expression. Quiet, unfamiliar. Lila's voice broke the silence. You could still walk away, build something new, bigger. Amara shook her head. This isn't about building anymore. Then what's it about? She looked up, eyes steady, unblinking. About never being mistaken for less again. Paris smelled of rain and perfume, the kind of air that pretends at purity. Amara stepped out of the black car, her heels clicking against wet cobblestone. The Maison Verlaine headquarters loomed above her, glass and limestone, a monument to exclusion disguised as artistry. But this time she wasn't a customer. She was the investor. Her ID listed her as A.L. Carter, principal partner of Arcadia Group. Her hair was styled differently, her tone colder. The receptionist didn't recognize her, just another powerful woman in a tailored suit. "Bienvenue, Madame Carter," the receptionist said, smiling. "Monsieur Laurent is expecting you." Laurent, the same man who had once refused to meet her eyes in that showroom. Now he waited to charm her into saving his brand. Amara followed the assistant into a private salon lined with portraits of pale-faced founders. Everything gleamed, the kind of luxury built on silent hierarchies. Laurent rose when she entered, extending his hand. "Madame Carter, an honor." Amara shook it lightly. "The pleasure is expensive, I'm told." He laughed too loudly, gesturing to a seat. "You have a reputation for precision." "I admire that." "May I offer you coffee?" She sat. "No, thank you." "Let's talk numbers." He hesitated, unused to directness from a woman, much less one who controlled his future. "Of course," he said. "Maison Verlaine is a legacy house. What we offer cannot be measured by balance sheets alone." Amara's voice was even. "Legacy doesn't pay debts." His smile thinned. "Perhaps you misunderstand the value of heritage." She leaned forward. "Perhaps you misunderstand who's buying it." For a moment, silence. He blinked, recalibrating his charm. "I assure you, Madame Carter," he said smoothly, "Verlaine remains the soul of French luxury. We welcome investors who understand refinement, not disruption." That word, refinement, hit like an old insult. Her lips barely curved. "Refinement is what people say when they can't afford relevance." Laurent's composure flickered. "You're very direct. I've had practice." They discussed figures for 2 hours. Laurent bragged about rebranding for diversity, about opening to global markets, his tone dripping with performative progress. Amara listened, every word a study in hypocrisy. When he paused for effect, she said quietly, "Do you vet your staff for bias?" He blinked. "Pardon?" "Your associates, the ones who greet customers, are they trained in basic respect or just sales?" Laurent laughed, uncertain. "You'd be surprised how sensitive the public has become. One small misunderstanding and misunderstanding?" Her gaze cut him clean. "You call public humiliation a misunderstanding?" He froze. I didn't mean." Amara's phone vibrated softly. She ignored it. "You should know," she said, voice calm but razor sharp, "that investors value transparency. The people you dismiss today might own you tomorrow." Laurent smiled awkwardly, missing the meaning. "Wise words, Madame Carter." She stood. "You'll find them prophetic." When she left the room, her assistant from Arcadia handed her a folder. "Everything's signed. They think you're interested in a minority stake." Amara opened the file, scanning. "Good. They won't see the consolidation until it's done." Outside, thunder rolled. She walked past the same showroom where it had all begun. The same polished glass. The same scent of exclusion. Inside, the sales associate from months ago stood by a mannequin, rearranging scarves. Her smile flickered with vague recognition. "Bonjour, madame. Are you visiting from our investor group?" Amara's answer was simple. "Something like that," the woman gestured proudly. "We've changed a lot since the incident. We've learned we're a family now." "A family?" Amara echoed, her eyes cold. "Families remember." The woman tilted her head, confused. "I'm sorry?" Amara smiled, not cruelly, but with the weight of inevitability. "You will be." She turned and walked out before the associate could respond. The rain fell harder now, drumming on her umbrella like applause. Each drop blurred, the lights transforming the city into streaks of silver and shadow. In the car, Lila waited. "How'd it go?" "Perfect," Amara said softly. "They think I'm saving them." And you're not? She looked out the window at the reflection of the Maison Verlaine logo glowing in the rain. I'm saving what they built on our humiliation, she said, and turning it into their lesson. Lila glanced at her. They'll know it's you soon enough. Amara's tone was ice. That's the point. The car pulled away from the curb, taillights slicing through the dark. Somewhere behind them, lightning cracked, silent through the glass but bright enough to reflect in Amara's eyes. She didn't blink, didn't smile, only whispered the words that had become her creed. Ownership is the only apology I'll ever accept. The boardroom of Maison Verlaine was a cathedral of arrogance. Chandeliers, velvet chairs, portraits of founders painted in oil and self-importance. Every seat was filled. Executives whispered in French and English, nervous and unaware that the storm was already in the room. Amara, still publicly known as A.L. Carter, sat near the end of the long table, quiet, composed, her documents neatly arranged. Only Dr. Rao and Lila knew the truth. The rest still believed Arcadia Group was just another investor bailing out their legacy. Laurent, smug in his tailored suit, began the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we are fortunate to have secured significant foreign capital. With Arcadia Group's support, Maison Verlaine will remain a global symbol of refinement. He smiled directly at Amara. And with Madame Carter's guidance, our heritage will continue. Respectfully modernized, of course. Respectfully modernized. The phrase twisted like poison. Amara's voice was measured. Shall we review the contract terms? Laurent waved a hand. Just formality. Our lawyers have reviewed the documents. Dr. Rao leaned forward. And yet, Monsieur Laurent, you've overlooked one clause, page 43. The board members flipped pages, murmuring confusion. Amara watched the realization spread across their faces like slow fire. The clause stated, upon completion of transaction, Arcadia Group assumes controlling interest, 52% ownership, and executive authority effective immediately. Laurent's smile faltered. That's impossible. There must be a misprint. Rao's tone was surgical. The clause was included in your signed addendum, monsieur. You initialed it yourself. A heavy silence fell. The sound of shuffling papers filled the void. Amara stood, calm, collected, inevitable. No misprint, she said softly. I now hold controlling ownership of Maison Verlaine. Laurent's chair scraped back violently. Who do you think you are? Amara turned, meeting his eyes for the first time with unmasked recognition. You already met me, she said, months ago, in your showroom. The room went still. One woman gasped. Another whispered something too fast to catch. Laurent's face drained of color, the connection finally piercing through disbelief. Amara continued, her tone unwavering. You told me I didn't belong here. You were right, I belong above it. Laurent's voice trembled. This is a deception. Fraudulent. Legal, she interrupted. Documented. Public by morning. He lunged forward, hands shaking. You can't run a fashion house. You're a tech executive. Amara didn't flinch. You built this brand on image. I built an empire on intelligence. Guess which one scales faster? The board members exchanged looks, half fear, half awe. Amara placed a folder on the table. Effective immediately, I'm restructuring the leadership. Your diversity consultant program will be audited. Hiring will reflect the world you sell to, not the one you protect. And that associate who mocked a paying customer, she's already dismissed. Laurent's voice broke. You can't humiliate us like this. She smiled slightly. Humiliation requires power. You no longer have any. Rao handed her the final document, the official declaration of ownership. She signed it in a single stroke. The flash of cameras erupted outside the glass doors. Reporters already tipped off. Laurent sank into his chair, whispering something like prayer or panic. Amara gathered her papers, her movements precise. Maison Verlaine isn't dying, she said quietly. It's evolving. For the first time, it will be led by someone who knows what exclusion feels like. She turned to the board one last time. You built a house of mirrors. I just replaced the reflection. Then she left. Outside, flashes blinded her for a moment. Journalists shouted questions. Who are you really? What message are you sending? She didn't answer. She walked through the crowd, each step deliberate, the gray dress under her coat visible only in glimpses. A ghost from the past made symbol of power. Lila followed, whispering, "It's everywhere. They're calling it the greatest corporate coup in fashion history." Amara didn't look back. "They'll call it whatever makes them comfortable. Do you feel vindicated?" Amara paused at the door to the car, rain streaking her face like unclaimed tears. "Vindication is a luxury," she said. "I prefer ownership." The door closed. Behind her, inside that golden boardroom, the men who once decided what class looked like now sat in stunned silence, owned by the woman they had once dismissed as unworthy. And somewhere in the flashing chaos outside, a single phrase began trending worldwide. "She owns the brand." By dawn, the world had turned her victory into a spectacle. Screens everywhere, subways, lobbies, phones, flashed headlines. Black CEO takes over Maison Verlaine. The woman who outsmarted Paris. Racial reckoning in high fashion. But the praise was hollow beneath the noise. Half the articles called her brilliant, the other half called her angry. The comment sections burned. She only got there by playing the race card. She's ruining tradition. This is corporate terrorism disguised as diversity. The words scrolled endlessly, each one cutting deeper than she wanted to admit. Lila tried to keep her off social media. Don't look. Let them choke on their own outrage. But Amara looked anyway. It wasn't the hate that hurt. It was the pattern. The same people who ignored her work now dissected her tone, her dress, her expression. Even success came with the demand for her silence. A week later, Maison Verlaine's headquarters buzzed with tension. Protesters gathered outside, some shouting for change, others demanding she step down. Inside, the staff moved around her like she was radioactive, polite, afraid, watching. One executive approached her in the hallway, voice hushed. "Madam Carter, some longtime clients are reconsidering their partnerships. They're uncomfortable with the—" She cut him off. "Say it." He hesitated. "The shift in brand identity." "Good," she said coldly. "Let them go. We'll replace nostalgia with relevance." Still, she felt the exhaustion growing behind her armor. The constant fight to justify her own competence, even after winning. Dr. Rao visited her office that evening. The city glowed below, Paris drenched in a golden dusk. "You've won the war," he said softly. "Now comes the occupation." Amara gave a tired half-smile. "Feels like I traded chains for a crown." Rao studied her. "History doesn't hand over power quietly. It screams first." She nodded. "And then it rewrites you." They stood in silence for a while. The room hummed with distance, the sound of the world recalibrating around her. Later that night, she went home to her penthouse, alone for the first time in days. Her inbox overflowed with interview requests, threats, invitations. Some offered collaborations. Others offered advice. One message, flagged urgent, stopped her. It was from Laurent. "We both know this was never about fashion," it read. "You think you've won, but they'll never accept you. Not in this world. You'll always be an outsider in your own empire." Her hands trembled, not with fear but recognition. He was right about one thing. This wasn't about fashion. It never was. She closed the message and stared out at the Paris skyline. Her reflection in the glass looked like someone else entirely, poised, powerful but faintly hollow. She whispered, almost to herself, "Then I'll build a world that does." The next morning, a storm of PR calls hit. The stock dipped. Hashtag split in half. She owns the brand versus boycott Verlaine. Lila burst into her office. "They're planning a press conference. The old board members are pushing for your resignation. They're saying your acquisition was unethical." Amara didn't flinch. "They can't prove fraud. The documents are airtight." "They don't need proof," Lila said. "They just need noise." Amara exhaled slowly. "Then we make ours louder." She walked into the glass corridor, heels clicking like metronome strikes. Cameras flashed from the street below, waiting for her statement. She didn't give one. Not yet. Instead, she gathered her team. "We launch tomorrow," she said. "The new campaign?" "The new direction. If they want to see who I am, and we'll show them." "What's the theme?" someone asked, her eyes darkened, steady. "Ownership," she said. "Not just of a company, but of narrative." That night, as the city pulsed with chatter and headlines, Amara sat alone at her desk, sketching ideas on a notepad. Not clothes, but identities. Each design represented a story erased by centuries of exclusion. She wasn't just making fashion. She was weaponizing visibility outside. The rain began again, gentle at first, then harder. Through the window, her reflection blurred in the glass, a silhouette fighting to stay whole under the storm. She didn't look away. For the first time in months, she let herself feel the full weight of it. The loneliness of triumph, the ache of always being first. Then she straightened, picked up her phone, and called the campaign director. Her voice was steady. "Tomorrow, we make history uncomfortable." The conference room on the 42nd floor of Preston and Hall's headquarters looked sterile enough to hide a murder. Polished walnut table, neutral walls, a single glass jug of water untouched. The air conditioning hummed a little too loudly, as if compensating for the silence. Maya entered, flanked by her legal counsel, Jerome Porter, and a quiet assistant recording notes. Across the table, Richard Lang sat stiffly beside two corporate attorneys. Kane's seat 2 spaces down was empty. Lang looked up, tone clipped. "Ms. Ellison, thank you for meeting us under these unfortunate circumstances." "Circumstances you created," Maya said. A lawyer interjected. "Let's maintain civility. This is an internal ethics hearing, not a courtroom." Jerome leaned forward. "Then let's not pretend civility replaces accountability." Lang's mouth tightened. "Our goal is resolution." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Mine is recognition. You don't get to script what accountability looks like." The lawyer slid a folder across the table. "Our investigation found procedural mishandlings, not discrimination." Mr. Kane's comments were deemed unprofessional but not racially motivated. Maya opened the folder. Inside, photocopies, summaries, redacted names. Every paragraph sanitized. Every sentence diluted until the event barely existed. She said quietly, "So, you've rewritten the scene. Erased witnesses, muted tone, sanitized slurs into misunderstandings." Lang replied, "We don't dispute your perception of the incident." Maya looked up sharply. "Perception is not reality, Mr. Lang. Evidence is." Jerome slid another folder from his briefcase. "Then let's add what your investigation missed. Statements from 3 employees, 1 recorded voicemail, and metadata proving internal HR complaints were closed within 48 hours, without interviews." Lang's lawyers exchanged quick glances. "You obtained this how?" "Anonymous submission," Jerome said evenly. "Your own employees are tired of protecting your narrative." Lang leaned back, silent now. The air in the room shifted. He could sense control slipping. Maya said, "You wanted a meeting for closure. He'll get exposure instead." A corporate mediator entered, clipboard in hand. "We'll proceed with testimony," she announced. "Miss Ellison, please recount the event in your own words." Maya's voice was calm. "I walked into the bank to finalize a property transaction. Mr. Kane refused to process my account, implied I was impersonating my own company's CEO, and directed security to remove me." Lang interjected. "That's your interpretation." She turned her gaze on him. He said, "You people come in here thinking success makes you equal. That's not interpretation." The mediator's pen paused mid-stroke. Lang froze. Jerome placed the printed transcript on the table, captured from the bank's own security audio. "You'll find it lines up with time-stamped footage." Silence stretched. Then one of Lang's lawyers whispered, "That recording wasn't in our files." Jerome smiled faintly. "No surprise. The branch erased it within 24 hours. But corporate servers keep backups for 30. The mediator exhaled softly. "That changes the framework entirely." Lang looked to his counsel, but no one met his eyes. Half an hour later, the room was noise and motion, lawyers whispering, papers rustling, the hum of a collapsing defense. Maya sat still, hands folded. She didn't gloat. She observed. Jerome leaned close. "We have enough leverage now for federal inquiry. They'll settle fast." She whispered back. We're not done. Lang spoke finally, voice quieter now. What do you want? Public acknowledgement, full investigation into prior complaints, and reinstatement for every employee who was silenced for reporting bias. That's excessive. It's justice, Maya said. Lang shook his head. You're making this political. It already was, she said. You just built your empire pretending it wasn't. Later that afternoon, as reporters waited outside, word of the hearing leaked. Bank CEO faces discrimination exposure after internal recording surfaces, read the first headline. By evening, social feeds exploded. Former employees began posting stories, anonymous at first, then named. HR memos surfaced, a quiet revolution of testimony. Inside her car, Maya watched the news stream. Jerome sat beside her, exhausted but alert. You realize they'll pivot now, he said. They'll sacrifice Cain, issue apologies, call it an isolated event. Maya nodded. Let them. Every empire starts its collapse by calling the first crack an exception. The next morning, Cain finally appeared before the board. Sallow, unshaven, eyes darting. The HR director read out the decision. Termination immediate. Cain muttered, So I'm the scapegoat now? After years of doing what they wanted? Lang replied coldly, You embarrassed this institution. Cain's laugh was hollow. You mean I got caught? He walked out without another word. By late afternoon, the board held a press conference. Lang read from a prepared statement. We acknowledge serious failures in conduct and oversight. Preston and Hall will cooperate fully with external investigations. When he looked up, cameras flashed, white bursts across his face. For the first time, he looked small. Maya watched from her office window. Below, screens replayed his apology. Her phone buzzed, a message from the same anonymous source. He's not the only one. Check internal file, DI Archive 2018. She stared at the text. More cracks. More truth waiting in the dark. Jerome entered quietly. You did it, he said. He's finished. Maya didn't smile. No, he's just exposed. The system's still standing, Jerome studied her expression. So what happens now? She looked out the window at the skyline, its sharp glass edges catching the sunset like a blade. Now, she said, we stop letting silence win. That night, the hearing transcript circulated online. Every word she'd said, every dismissal, every contradiction was public, and across boardrooms, executives began rewriting their policies overnight, pretending change had always been their intention. But Maya knew better. Change didn't start with compliance. It started with confrontation, and she had just taught an institution how to listen. A year later, Maison Verlaine looked nothing like the empire Amara had inherited. The portraits of dead founders were gone. In their place hung black and white images of workers, seamstresses, and artisans whose names had never been credited. The air smelled of linen and rebellion. Amara stood on the balcony of the company's new atelier, overlooking Paris. Reporters gathered below for the unveiling of Verlaine's first collection under her full creative direction. She wasn't nervous. She was done being nervous. Lila appeared beside her, holding a tablet. The numbers are in. Sales up 70% since the rebrand. Vogue just called it a moral market shift. Amara smiled faintly. Let them call it whatever sells truth. Downstairs, the show began. Models walked through the courtyard wearing clothes made from recycled Verlaine archives, literal reinventions of the brand's past. Every piece bore a hidden tag, the name of the garment worker who had stitched it. When the final model emerged wearing the reimagined gray dress, the audience rose to its feet. The very fabric that once mocked her now crowned her legacy. A journalist called up from the crowd. Madame Carter, what does this dress mean to you now? Amara leaned toward the microphone. It means they were wrong, and I didn't need to become them to prove it. Applause thundered through the courtyard. Later, as the show ended, Amara found herself walking alone backstage. The noise faded, replaced by the low hum of sewing machines still running in a distant room. She stopped there, watching the seamstresses, women of all colors and accents, laughing as they worked. For the first time, she allowed herself to exhale. Dr. Rao entered quietly. History's pages are shifting under your feet. History doesn't shift on its own, she said. Someone has to press hard enough, he nodded. You've pressed harder than most. Amara turned toward him. Hard enough that they'll never erase me? Rao looked at her for a long moment. No one is immune to erasure, but your work ensures they'll have to lie to do it. That night she returned to her penthouse. Paris glimmered outside, the same city that had once closed its doors to her now lit by billboards carrying her name. Her phone buzzed. A message from the old sales associate, now working as an inclusion consultant in the new Verlaine structure. "Thank you for not firing me. You gave me a chance to unlearn," Amara replied simply. "Then teach others." She set the phone aside and poured herself a glass of wine. On the television, a news anchor discussed her leadership, calling it the new model of ethical capitalism. The phrase made her laugh quietly. Labels again, always labels. She looked at her reflection in the window. "Ethical capitalism," she murmured. "Or maybe just humanity repackaged." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lila entered, hesitant. "You're supposed to join the after-party." "Everyone's waiting, I know," Amara said. "But tonight isn't about celebration." Lila frowned. "Then what is it about?" Amara looked out over the city. The lights, the hum, the chaos. "Closure," Lila smiled faintly. "You don't believe in closure." "No," Amara said. "But I believe in forward motion." She turned, picked up her coat, and stepped onto the balcony again. The wind caught her hair, carrying the scent of the city. Perfume, rain, ambition. Below, she could hear the crowd chanting her name. Not worship, recognition, Amara, Amara, Amara. She closed her eyes for a second. The sound wasn't for vanity. It was validation of existence. Proof that the world could finally see what it tried to hide. Her mind drifted back to that first day. The gray dress, the laughter, the humiliation. Every fragment of pain had been currency. Every insult an investment, and now, this the ownership not just of a company but of narrative, memory, and meaning. Her voice was a whisper against the Paris wind. "Let them write me into history, and I already own the pen." The city answered with sirens, applause, and rain. She walked back inside, closing the balcony doors behind her. The lights dimmed automatically, leaving only the skyline's reflection across the glass. Her silhouette now part of it. On her desk lay a folder titled The Verlaine Foundation, her next project, funding young, Black and marginalized designers worldwide. She opened it, signed the first page, and sealed it with her initials. A.L. Carter. Then she wrote one final line beneath her signature. "Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what refuses to leave with you." She placed the pen down. The night outside deepened into silence, but the city still glowed. Proof that some revolutions don't burn out. They illuminate.